Look, a lot of you cannot afford the trucks that you're driving. I recently saw one of the highest car payments I've ever seen while talking to a couple on this podcast. They spend $2,495 every month on their luxury cars. This couple is drowning in debt, and the cost of their cars, a BMW and Mercedes, are definitely contributing to that mess. But they chose these cars because, according to them, they'd always had luxury cars. Again, the key thing when buying a car is you have to start by choosing one that you can afford, not the car you think you should have. Most people do not do that. Read my lips. You're gonna cause yourself a huge amount of trouble.
Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel. And if this is your first time here, hello, welcome. This is Essential Patience and I am Patience. And in today's video, we'll be talking about auto loan debt, or car payments as they are more popularly known, how they are growing and eating up a big chunk of people's finances. And if that sounds good to you, be sure to like this video, subscribe to my channel, and ring the notification bell, because on this channel we have conversations about society's impact on our lives and finances, and how we can take back our power and make more intentional life decisions and financial decisions as well. So be sure to stick around for more of these conversations in the future. So let's dive straight into today's topic. Owning a car has long been associated with freedom, independence, and convenience. However, the financial burden of car ownership has increased significantly, impacting the lives of many individuals and families in the United States. And so in this video, we will be exploring the rising cost of owning a car, including the loan terms, the most common types of cars, the prices, interest rates, added fees, loan terms, and why cars have increased so much, including having a moment of appreciating in the recent years. And hopefully after all of that, we would have the knowledge as well as some nuances as to car ownership and how we can reduce the cost so that we do not sink our financial lives with car ownership. So to really get this going, first have to know what auto loans are. What are they, and why do so many people seem to have auto loan debt? So auto loans are financial agreements where a lender provides funds to purchase a vehicle, which can borrow and be repaid over a specific time with specific interest. Auto loans are crucial for many buyers who cannot afford to pay the full price of owning a car up front. These loans come in various terms and conditions, including interest rates, fees, and repayment period. And auto loans are very, very popular in the United States. So in 2022, the list of the most common types of debt were released, and they were in this order. Number one, of course, was mortgages, which makes sense. Buying a house is super expensive. The median cost of a house in the United States is over $400,000 currently. So it makes sense why one of the biggest purchases in most people's lives would accumulate to be the most debt the United States in general has. The second was student loans, which is over $1 trillion as well. Kind of makes sense, but is kind of ridiculous as well. And the third is auto loan debt. 4 is credit cards, and 5 HELOC. But essentially, auto loan is number 3, and that's crazy because cars are a depreciating asset. You can make a point for houses, purchasing a place to live to stabilize their cost of a household. Student loans, you can say that's a way of upward mobility. A lot of people become doctors, lawyers, making way more money than they could have if they didn't invest in their education. While I didn't take out student loan debt, going to college was a great privilege for me to be upwardly mobile and to earn myself a good career that would hopefully grow, and I would be able to make a livable wage and more and succeed and thrive. Credit cards, a lot of them is frivolous spending, and of course home equity is for improvements, home improvements. Some people do take out HELOCs though for basically anything. At this point, some people are using your house as essentially a credit card in itself. But auto loan is unique in the way that it's a depreciating asset. Most people don't spend but maybe a couple of hours at most in their car. There are people who do live in their car, but that's not a vast majority of people. A lot of time it's easy to convince yourself to spend way more on a car than otherwise. There's so many ways people use to justify it, including myself, but we will get more into that later on. It can be an expensive way of taking on a lot of debt for something that maybe you could have gotten for much cheaper. Be sure to watch my video, How Much Car Can You Afford, if you haven't already. I reviewed the Money Guys rules, and I essentially broke down how much each income range you can afford in cars. So check out that video. But continuing, let's have some fun with this. So what are the most common types of cars in the United States? If anything, Americans love their cars. They love their cars. And the most popular type of cars are the sedans. So known for fuel efficiency and comfort, sedans are popular among urban and suburban dwellers. The next one is an SUV, which by the way, I did not know what an SUV meant, but apparently a sports utility vehicle. But I did not know this when I was doing research for this video. That's when I found out what an SUV meant, which is hard because I work for a car company as a quality engineer. But SUVs are valued for being spacious and versatile, and SUVs are favored a lot by families because it can fit more people in them comfortably versus sedans. So think of like mom cars and mom vans. The next ones are trucks. When I was working for a car company, I was working mostly in a truck plant, and let me tell you, people love their trucks, and a lot of these people are not farmers, but trucks are preferred towards capacity and utilities. Trucks are becoming very popular among those who need a work vehicle, but others use it for luxury or as a luxury find. And trucks are one of those ones that can go so crazy in price. I'm talking about people buying $60,000 to $100,000 trucks, and they don't even work in a field that needs a truck. And another one that is growing are EVs, which are electric vehicles. They are becoming more popular, especially with the growing concern. And EVs are being said to be the vehicles of the future. I know the hype has slowed down a little bit. Back in the late 2010s and early 2020s, like EVs were all the rage, but we've seen how a lot of them have dropped in prices. But still, they're very popular. So now let's move in to discuss the cost of a new car. So the cost of a car has been increasing steadily over the past few years. I mean, more so in the early 2020s, but now it's more steadily increasing. So according to Fortune, the average price of a new car in the United States of America currently is $47,388, which is a significant rise from a decade ago. Because back in 2014, the average cost of a new car was $37,600. So in the past decade, we've seen a $10,000 increase, averaging about $1,000 per year. But that's disproportionately spread. The cost of used vehicles have also increased and now averages about $27,297 in the United States. And that number is for 2024, which is a 12% decrease from 2022, where the average price of a used car was $31,095. That's a lot of money for a used car. That costs more than my new car. And if you do want to know how much my new car costs, as well as all the breakdowns and how I got scammed, go watch my video, which I posted a few months ago. But there are some good reasons why the cost of cars have increased, and part of that is the technological advancements. Most cars today are filled with so much technology, so much complex technologies. It causes the rise of the cost of the car, including software. Software is also very expensive. Back when I was working in the car company, I did hear that a lot of cars now today have even more complex software and technology than planes. Cars today have become so sophisticated, and of course the professionals who are working it, they need to get paid. The engineers, the companies need to stay competitive. And with all the upgrades, of course, the safety features, I know I definitely considered that when I was buying a car. A lot of cars today have the lane assist, the assisted driving, cruise control, just a whole bunch of really good technology to keep us safe in the car and reduce accidents. And of course, we cannot forget supply chain issues and higher manufacturing costs as well. But this is not the only reason why car costs have gone up, because when you buy a car, you're going to more likely not pay more than the MSRP, which is the manufacturer's suggested retail price. You will be pushed on by the dealership so many fees that your car could total up to thousands and tens of thousands of dollars more than the MSRP or how much you expected to pay. We're going to go over about 10 of these, but it could be more depending on the dealership. Some are legitimate, but a lot of them don't fall for it. And it's easy to fall for it because over 80% of people have reported buying their car, or at least buying a car from the dealership. So it's not uncommon for people to walk into dealerships and pay more than they intended to. And one of the fees that they will tell you about is the dealer fee. Dealerships often charge various fees, including documentation fees, processing fees, administrative fees, and sometimes these fees can be negotiated. So speak up, especially if the fees keep adding up, a few $100s here and there, and before you know it, it's adding up to thousands of dollars. Another fee that I definitely did pay was the destination fee. This is common if you're buying a new car, but very uncommon if you're buying a used car. So if you're buying a used car and they tell you about destination fee, make sure that you tell them that destination fees are paid on new cars because it's the cost of the car delivery from the manufacturer to the dealership or to you. I actually had my car delivered to my apartment at the time. Make sure that if you're budgeting for a new car, be sure to include that as part of the purchase because that can add up quickly. I paid over $1,000 for my destination fee. The next one is sales tax, which is not really hidden. You have to pay taxes on everything that you buy in most states. I know Texas, we don't have state income taxes, but we have high sales tax. I paid over $1,500 in sales tax for my car, so that can add up quickly. The next thing are extended warranties, which can be negotiated and outright rejected. I outright rejected my extended warranty. And for this, I'm not talking about just your regular extended warranties. It could include protection packages. They were trying to offer me one for interior and exterior protection. I think part of it did end up going in there because there was some that I couldn't take off, but that's included. Add-ons such as window tinting, fabric protection, VIN etching, and while some of these options are useful, others are just not worth it at all. But I end up having to take on some of the add-ons just because I wanted to purchase my car. Another ridiculous one someone would try to charge you is advertising fee. I find this super ridiculous because advertising is a cost to the business. Believe me, it's already baked into the price of the car. So if they're trying to charge you advertising fee, please ask them to take it off with quickness. The next one is title and registration fees. Typically, these you will have to pay. These fees are associated with transferring of ownership of the vehicle and registration to your name. They vary by state to state and can be substantial depending on where you live. It's not a one-size-fits-all, so do your research and make sure that they're not trying to charge you more than in your state you're allowed, because a lot of states will have a maximum or at least a range that they typically allow people to charge within. And if there is a range, be sure to negotiate to the lower end. The only thing they can say is no, but if you don't ask, you at least won't have the opportunity to negotiate down. And of course, documentation fee. Yes, they will charge you for having to do documentation for their own business. You can negotiate it or try to get them to take it off as part of the negotiation. Something else that they might try to charge you, but this is only for if you are taking out a loan, is a loan origination fee. So loan origination fee is for financing vehicles through a dealership. They might charge you this, which is usually associated with setting up the financing and can be added to the overall cost. If you do know that you're going to finance your car, you want to be looking out for this fee and see if you can negotiate it or get them to take it off altogether. And the last but absolutely not the least fee we're going to talk about is the dealership preparation fee. Will be charged by some dealership for preparing the vehicle for delivery. This might include cleaning, fueling, and other basic things. And for a person purchasing a new car, make sure that you do not accept this fee because it should have already been prepared by the manufacturer to be delivered. You're already paid the destination fee. Do not pay this preparation fee. And the second is for people who are paying for this car used, which they might have to pay it. But certainly feel free to give them a hard time about it and ask them to take it off and bother them till they do take it off or reduce it, because there's no reason why you should have to pay for that. That is again part of their operation cost, and it should not be passed on to you as an additional fee when it's more likely than not already baked into the used car price. And an additional fee that I did not put into these categories because this is only for people who are financing their cars, and it's one of those that is hard to negotiate on, but you certainly can, is your interest rate. It is individual and is based on your credentials and where you are shopping and how much you're trying to borrow, because interest rates on auto loan debts vary based on credit score, loan term, and marketing condition. As of early 2024, the average interest rate for a new car was about 6.73% and 11.9% for used cars. And be sure to negotiate your interest rates as well. If a good credit score, it's easier done than if you have a bad credit score. So try to make sure that if you're coming close to purchasing anything with credit, be sure to make sure that you're doing the right thing with your credit and preparing it so that you do not get penalized for bad credit. If you have a credit score above 700, you have a better chance of having lower interest rates. I had a 3.99% interest rate, and that was because I financed my car for less than 4 years. And that is something that you can do as well. Just have a shorter loan term. Because if you have a long loan term, inflation is happening every single year, so your interest rate will be higher. But if your term is like 24 months, 36 months, or 48 months, you're more likely to have a lower interest rate. And speaking of loan terms, let's talk about how they are becoming much longer as the years go on. So loan terms are the term that you'll be financing your car for. They typically range from 24 months to 96 months now. And 96 months are becoming more and more popular. And the reason why they're becoming popular is that as people are buying more and more expensive cars or spending more on purchasing a car, they still can't afford but so much for their monthly payment. So they'll make the term longer, so you have more time to pay off your car. So 24 months is 2 years, and 96 months is 8 years. So you will have 8 years to pay off this car. So your monthly car payments will come all the way down, but oftentimes the consequence is higher interest rates because it's 8 years. You need to make sure that they're not losing the value of that money due to inflation. But the terms typically go in 12-month increments, meaning you can opt into like 24 months, 36 months, 48 months, 60 months, 84 months, and then 96 months. As of 2023, the average car financing term was 67 to 69 months. Now, of course, that's not the range being offered, but what it shows is that the average car is being financed between 5 and 6 years. Now, we cannot acknowledge the rising car prices without acknowledging the effects of 2020 and the global situation that took place. I heard the algorithm doesn't like that word, so let's just call it the panini, as dearly referred to. So the panini happened in 2022 and it caused some supply chain issues. And if you didn't know, while cars can be manufactured and are manufactured in the United States, and I actually worked in the assembly line at one point and even had situations where I would like start at the very beginning where the VIN number was created in the chassis line, and I would wait, a certain amount of hours and the car would be done, and I'll have to do some inspection at the end of the assembly line before it's taken out for more inspection and test quality and reliability and safety purposes. But each part of the car, it was not manufactured in that plant. There's a different plant that manufactures, say, the door, the mirrors, the tail lights. All those things come from elsewhere. So when we have supply chain issues like we did, where a lot of things were delayed because people could not be in factories. Factories typically have hundreds and thousands of people coming in hours for their shifts. It causes a danger to the spread of the virus. When the things did get manufactured, a lot of the ports were filled with items and there weren't people to offload it in a good amount of time. And of course, there was the chip shortage as well. So there's so many shortages happening. And because of that, when supply is low, demand is high. What does that add up to? Digging into our economics brain, we would know that that causes prices to increase. And because a lot of people had money and they wanted to buy better cars, and there was also the stimulus checks, which put more money into the pockets of Americans. They wanted to spend the money because people were not going out, so they wanted to spend their money elsewhere, and they did that with cars. Student loan pauses for a lot of people mean they didn't have to pay their student loan debts, and a lot of people did not. In fact, less than 10% of people continue to consistently pay, and because of that, they had more money in their budget. And where did it go? Purchasing cars. So the demand is high and people are willing to pay, and the dealerships are looking like, wow, let's just sell the cars to the person who's willing to pay the most for it. And there were essentially like bidding wars for cars, new and used. So the car prices surge. We're still dealing with the aftermath, but we can see that the prices are dropping, so that's a good sign. But because of this, there is a lasting impact that even though car prices are going down, they're not going to go down to pre-panini levels. So there is a consequence to the individual and to families about the rising car prices and the cost of just owning a car. The first one, of course, is increasing debt. As the car prices rise, people take on more debt to pay this car. It's not like they're paying for a lot of their cars out of pocket or just in cash. They just take it on more loans, meaning that they're going more and more into debt for a depreciating asset.
Catherine, what car do you drive and what's your monthly payment?
I drive a 2023 Acura Integra and it's $565 a month.
I drive a Mercedes EQS 580 and I pay $777 a month. I drive a BMW 330i and my monthly payment is $580.
And because people are putting down so little on their cars, by the time they drive out of the parking lot with the car, for a new car, the price has instantly dropped like 10%. But also, a lot of people owe more on their car than it's actually worth, which is why they would need gap insurance, which is another fee that they'll try to sell you on. And it's easy for you to accept a gap insurance when you're putting down less than 20% on your car, or just has on so much additions that it eats up your 20% that you put down. The next one is longer loan terms. So when they do give you a lot of these huge loans for cars that are depreciating in price, typically in order to make the car payments more bearable, we know that they are going to give you a longer loan term, meaning that people are staying in debt for longer periods of time. I mean, sometimes you'll probably be in debt for so long paying off this car, by the time you finish paying off the car, you probably hate the car. And some people barely ever finish paying off their cars. Instead, they will just trade it in for a new one and just roll in that negative equity onto their next car, which makes that loan bigger and they're even more underwater. And some people keep doing this for years and years, and they never have a paid for car. And before they know it, they have a car that's worth like $30,000 and they owe like $60,000, $70,000 on that car from years and years of rolling over negative equity. And with paying for car payments all the time, there is a strain on your budget. I know that when I was paying off my car and my car payment was almost $700, it was definitely a strain on my pockets. I am so happy that I no longer have that car payment. I just buckled down, paid it off, and now that money can go towards other things that I'm more passionate about, including savings. But for many middle class households, car payments are the reason why it is so hard for them to take their finances to the next level. Typically, for lower class, they will say that the reason why the poor stays poor is because of lottery tickets, payday loans, and stuff like that. But for middle class folks, it is house payments, car payments. That is what often keeps them middle class and stops them from going to the upper class or retiring in a much higher income tax bracket than they otherwise would, because each month they're paying $700 towards car payment, $800, some even $1,000.
Ben, what's the highest payment you've ever signed a customer at?
2,500 plus.
Russ, what's the highest payment you've ever signed a customer at?
3,200.
Kurt, what's the highest payment you've ever signed a customer at?
Just over 3,500 a month.
Vance, what's the highest payment you've ever signed a customer at?
Over $2,000 a month.
Woo! Ryan, what's the highest payment you've ever signed a customer at?
2,500 on a Lamborghini.
Mickey, what's the highest payment that you've ever seen on a car deal? $10,712 a month.
And imagine $1,000 per month adds up to $12,000 per year. Imagine investing that money. And you may say, well, that car payments might end. But for some people, they never do. They've had car payments for decades. They can't even remember the last time they didn't have a car payment. And for them, this is normal middle class life. And for those people with very high prices, there might be a time where they might miss a payment or cannot afford the car anymore, and they will have to have the car repossessed or sell it and be in debt, and that can affect your credit score. I'm not the type of person who cares way too much about credit score, but I do live in a realistic life and understand that for the average person in the United States, a credit score is very important to their financial health and financial foundation, and having a bad credit score can affect your purchase of more important stuff in the future, such as a house. So what can you do? What are some tips that I took into consideration? What are some tips that you can take into consideration for your next car or even for your current car to help reduce the cost of owning a car, having a car payment, for all of your adult life? What can you do? And here are my suggestions, as well as suggestions of a lot of financial advisors. Number one is to buy a used car. It is very helpful to buy a used car, a pre-owned certified car, whatever, do all the safety tests. Do not skim out on the checkups and the mechanic checking it to make sure it's a good car and you don't have a lemon, because in many states buying a used car is as is, meaning that you cannot return it if it's especially private sale. So buy as is. But these cars can often cost substantially less than a new car, especially if you wait about 5 to 6 years. By then depreciation has hit, and you can typically get this car for 50 to 60%, maybe even 70% of its original value on the high end. But the good thing is that because most of the depreciation has hit, when you buy the car, let's say for $15,000, and it's time for you to sell it, let's say 5 years later, you can probably sell the car for $10,000, even $12,000. The depreciation would not have been so much like the first owner experienced. The next thing you can do is to improve your credit score. Credit score is so important because if you have a good credit score, you can get a low interest, meaning that you can probably get a lower term and you can afford that payment. But if you don't have good credit, then you will be scammed into a high interest loan. I've heard people having like 25% interest on their car. That is so ridiculous. You're paying way more for that car than that car is even worth it. Mind you, you probably already paid more for the car than it's already worth. So this is like stupid tax times 2, but it's more like a poor credit score tax. So improve your credit score before you walk in there. Try to aim for above 700, which is easy to do if you just make sure that you stay out of debt. And if you have any debt, just pay it on time. That's it. 700 score coming right up. Avoid late fees, and it saves you so much money over the long term. The next thing is to get a shorter loan term. And the benefit is that your interest rate is going to be much lower. You'll be able to also pay off your car earlier. If you're doing 3 years and you are able to put down a good amount of money, you will be able to avoid paying any type of gap insurance, which is going to be an extra cost that will not be added to the cost of you purchasing your car. You'll be able to skip out on so many fees that you would pay just because you have a lower loan term. Which there is a B version to this as well, which is to make sure that you put down a healthy down payment. Put down a healthy down payment, you will not be upside down on the car if you have a shorter loan term, meaning that you can skip gap insurance, which typically costs anywhere from $500 to $1,000 depending on your loan and credit. The next one is to negotiate price. Always negotiate the price. Always do that. I don't think I negotiated hard enough, but especially if you're paying for a used car, always negotiate. Find out the real value of the car from Kelley Blue Book or the internet, wherever you find it from, and always negotiate on all of the costs of the car and the fees as well. I definitely know I negotiated all my fees and it really helped. And the next one is about a mindset. When you go into that dealership, focus on the total cost of the car and the total ownership of it. Don't just think about the monthly payment. Think about the bigger picture. If I tell you, hey, I can get you this car for $500 a month for 3 years, that would be a total of $6,000 per year. For 3 years, that's $18,000 a month. And you may be like, well, $500 is a lot. And I'm like, oh wait, if $500 is a lot, have you considered $350? And you'd be like, okay, like I think that's more doable for me. And I'm like, I can get you in for $350 for a 72-month term. Now, some people are only focusing on the $350 they can pay for a month, but you're not focused on the fact that it is for 72 months term. Total, you'll be paying about $25,200, which is way more than that $18,000 you'd have paid in 3 years. So focus on the bigger picture and the out of door price, not just your monthly payments. Next is about finances. So if you do choose to finance your car, compare loan terms. I definitely did with the interest rates, but sometimes it's worth bringing in your own financing from like a local credit union or from your bank, because then you have a check and you'll be like, hey, take this or leave it. So don't just accept the first loan that you get from the company. Take your time. You can always do this another day. Don't week of desperation. Just go in there, give them the set amounts of money, and that's it. Compare the loan term and just don't take any loan they give you. Check with your local credit union, your bank, other forms of financing. Explore it, do your research, and find the most favorable one for you. The next one is to maintain the vehicle. Maintain the vehicle for in the future if you need to sell it, but also if you're able to maintain the car, then you wouldn't have to change the car as soon as possible. I know that my car is a low mileage car. I've had it now for over 1.5 years and it still doesn't even have 6,000 miles on it. And because of that, I can drive this car for a long time. But you might be a person who is driving a lot, and that's okay. Just make sure that you're getting it maintained regularly. You're changing the oil, doing the maintenance, changing the brakes, making sure that you budget to take care of your car, because that is very important. It would ensure that that car lasts longer for you, and if you do have to sell it in the future, you'll be able to sell it for a decent price. You will lose money. You can't sell it for what you bought it for, but you can sell it for a good price in the market. The next one is something I'll be doing in the future, which is paying cash. I know that the next time I buy a car, I'm walking in with a check and be like, take it or leave it. That's it. And that's going to be a check of my own money. Buying a car in cash is a grounded way of thinking, because you're like, this is the amount of money that I have, this is my budget, and that's it. I'm not buying any more. That's it. So if they don't take it, I'm going to shop elsewhere. It forces you to deal with the money that you have in your bank account rather than the money of financing. I have adopted that mentality that that's what I'll be using in the future. It also puts into perspective that before you end up needing a car, you should plan in the future for it. So I know that whenever I feel like, let's say I want to upgrade my car in the next 5 years, and I'll start saving for this car, and I'll be able to purchase another car in cash. I like private sale, my current one. The next one, that if you do want to buy a used car, try private sale. Typically, if you go to a dealership for the car, they're baking in profit and they're baking in a whole lot of other fees. But if you know somebody that you can buy a car from, or even use online platforms to find a private sale, you can probably pay way less for that car than a dealership will charge you if you went in to purchase from them. But it doesn't matter if you get it from the dealership or private sale, be sure that that car is inspected and it's in good shape. You don't want to waste your money. And the last but absolutely not the least reinforces the cost of the car, which is keep your mind on your budget. Do not go in there with a flexible budget. Stick to the budget you went in there. Focus on the total cost of the car and don't have the car regrets because you paid way too much money. You got way too excited. You fell in love with the car. You wanted to drive out of the dealership with that car. You went over your budget. Focus on the total cost. Focus on your financial picture. Focus on your financial future.
Don't forget, you just screwed up your pre-approval by over $300,000. And all for a big screen, LED lights, and white seats? Bruh.
To conclude, there is a rising cost of cars, and it's important that we understand the factors that are driving this increase, as well as what we can do to ensure that we stick within our budget. We buy cars that we can actually afford, cars that do not break our budgets, and cars that we would not have regrets on later. It is important that we examine our situation, take our time to do research. Do not reek of desperation when you enter into the dealership. Be level-headed as you make all of your financial decisions. And I'm sure with this and more research, you will make good decisions when purchasing a car that you can afford. So with that, bringing this video to an end, thank you all so much for watching this video. Hopefully this video added value to your life, and if it did, be sure to like this video, subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and ring the notification bell so you do not miss out on any of my future videos. Be sure to leave your comments down below about how you feel about the rising car prices, and thank you again, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.